Good evening, Salibonani. You are on ZFM Stereo, my station, your station. My name is Tadiro Chaniwa, and we are back talking about creative economy conversations. I mean, everything creative. We look at the ecosystem and we say, where exactly can we make money from creatives, and how can we empower our creatives so that they can do what they need to do? I'm privileged to be in a network of people, amazing people who are doing and shaping things in the industry. And we can't talk of the Zimbabwean creative economy when we don't have the perspective of what the international world looks like. So guess who I have today? We have the honor and the pleasure of hosting the U.S. Embassy. By the way, this conversation is brought to you by the British Council and the Swiss Embassy. Again, seeing the diplomatic spaces just and throwing in the love and throwing in the support to make the Zimbabwean creative economy go. So we welcome Kiera Emmons who is the public diplomacy officer at the U.S. Embassy. Kiera, welcome to the Creative Economy Conversation.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
It is so good to have you here. I don't know if you know this, but I'm alumni. I'm One Beat alumni, and I am alumni of Academy of Women Entrepreneurs.
Amazing program.
Right?
Yeah.
And I think for me, the One Beat one stood out the most, particularly because it set the tone for my career. And the things that I'm using today, I mean, One Beat for me was 2015, I think. I'm still using a lot of those things
I'm glad
today.
to hear that.
So it's amazing. I mean, it's an amazing program. So thank you for that. And we'll dive straight into it. Look, these exchange programs in Zimbabwe have over time shaped a generation of cultural and entrepreneurial leaders like myself. I'm one bit like I said, I'm alumni, and broadly speaking, maybe talk to us about what you see as the legacy of these programs.
Well, I'm really glad to hear that you've had a couple of chances to interact with our programs. One Beat, especially, a really fun program to bring together creatives in the music space. And so, alumni, as you've mentioned, alumni are really multipliers of whatever they take away from the exchange. They then, I've rarely seen where they don't turn around and reinvest that in their own communities. And that's the whole point. You know, in the United States, our creative industry, our creative sector is very strong. It's globally relevant. It remains, sort of a leader in creative industry, both in film and in music and in other sectors. I think when we talk about creativity, we have to talk about technology and innovation now. And the United States has got a lot of great minds thinking about these things, and really happy to share what they've learned, the mistakes they've made, the impact they know that they can have. And so when we invest in exchange programs, we're really investing in not only the person, but the organizations and the communities and the countries more broadly. It's a way of sharing what we know, what we've learned, to create a pipeline of globally competitive leaders in those spaces, and to bring people into the conversation. Everybody benefits, including the United States, when we can have a conversation about different challenges, different contexts, different opportunities. And so I think that these exchange programs offer a legacy on multiple levels, both in benefit for the United States, but also in the individuals and the communities that get to participate.
Absolutely. And I love what you say about just the global preparedness and competitiveness amongst us. And I remember in our cohort, we were 25. There were 25 of us from different countries. So it was so amazing to see, we have the same challenges we have. And how did you deal with that? So it was really nice to see that. So how does the embassy then think about sustaining these relationships and the trust that is built through exchanges?
You know, sustaining the relationship starts with the individuals. And when we are selecting people for these programs, we are very clear that the end of the program, the end of your time, where were you in the United States?
We started off in Washington.
In Washington, D.C.
And
then you went around a bit.
Yes.
So the end of your time in the U.S., this is what we say to the participants when they're first, being going through the application process. We'll say that the end of your time in the U.S. is really the beginning.
Absolutely.
That's where it begins, and we maintain the relationship. We have a team of people who work really hard to keep contact with everybody from Fulbright alumni who went to the U.S. and taught a class 20 years ago, to people like yourself that went a few years ago, to people who are going next week. So we're really interested in what they can bring back to Zim, and then how we can collaborate with them, how we can sometimes provide a foundation, whether it's connecting them with other alumni. The power of networking cannot be underestimated. And so that alumni network and connecting those alumni from, like I said, from years ago to last week is really important. And people find that they often are stronger together. I think that's a common theme that we see. So those exchange programs, a lot of exchange programs are continuing. We're looking at now quality. It used to be a quantity game. I think that's shifting a little bit just because realities are evolving. Sectors are more globalized themselves. So for example, people that maybe would have struggled to be in touch between the United States and Zimbabwe and another country or 4 or 5 other countries, now with the predominance of social media, the ease of international communication, maybe can do that without so much structure and can naturally and organically find their way. We're looking at peer engagements between alumni of all different programs. We find that when we can bring together people from different programs who maybe have a common thread, amazing things will happen. So we're really big into keeping the network together. My team are excellent at doing that. And when we have opportunities, alumni are generally some of the first people we reach out to. They can also be conveners. I'll often say to alumni, come to this event that we're doing, but bring somebody who's never met us before. Bring somebody who's not an alumni. Bring 2 or 3 of your top students, your most promising students, or your most promising sound engineers, or whatever the sector is.
So good. And I know the question on every creative's mind right now is, with the US reviewing their posture globally, are these programs going to continue?
I think a lot of them will. I think they're going to be, like I said, it's more of a strategic continuation. It's looking at where can we're accountable to the taxpayers of the United States, and everything that we do has to show benefit for people in the United States. And so we're looking at it through a little bit of a different lens, which I think really serves the purpose of diplomacy well, because when we show that we are responsible and accountable, I think that sets a very high standard for what people can expect of us, and we want that. So yes, a lot of them will continue. We're actively recruiting for Fulbright right now, and we'll move into a Humphreys Fellowship recruitment very soon. All of our announcements are on our social media. It's the fastest way to find them, but they are continuing.
Nice. So for someone like me, I mean, these programs were not just professional development, they're performative. So how does the US Embassy think about the long-term return on investment for cultural exchange when the return on investment is measured in decades, not necessarily in budget cycles? Well, it goes back to alumni as multipliers, right? So you've gone on to do amazing things. Look at us today. And we were just talking about some of the other work that you're doing with festivals, and I think there we see, I hope that's something that you particularly, but all of the alumni have learned in the United States, or through that experience or a connection that you made with an American or another participant, can continue to be valuable. That's really, that ROI is really up to each alumni to accomplish. We're going to provide every possible tool to do that. But I think seeing an alumni, somebody who's participated in a program like this, has a really good opportunity to see themselves differently too. See themselves as mentors, see themselves as facilitators for other people to engage, and to, even if they can't engage, the reality is not everybody's getting on a plane. But to see themselves as part of something bigger right where they are. So good. So why does culture matter as an instrument of foreign policy, and what does it mean in a world that is reshaped by geopolitical competition, digital influence, and a growing skepticism of some of these institutions?
Well, I believe, I'm American and I've lived in 7 other countries. I really believe that culture creates that authentic human connection that transcends the competition, the differences. Everything that brings us together is based on human connection, and that's where culture lives. So I think it's really important. For example, when Zimbabwean musicians collaborate with American artists, or when entrepreneurs share their business practices, or their shared challenges across continents, they're just really building relationships based on mutual respect. I think culture comes down to respect in many ways as well, and shared aspirations, not so much government mandates. I work for the government, and there's a limit to what and how government can shape culture, rightfully so. We're just giving, these exchanges are just giving a chance for cultures to connect together and come up with shared solutions, and shared values and shared ideals that ultimately bring people together.
Yeah, so good. Now the U.S. is marking 250 years of independence. That's crazy in 2026.
Isn't that great?
Yeah, it's amazing. So as you're reflecting as Americans, you're reflecting on your own cultural identity at this milestone. So how does the conversation shape the way the embassy presents American culture abroad? Especially in Africa, especially in Zimbabwe, where the relationship with the West is often a bit complicated.
Yeah, complications are just another way to have conversations. So I feel like, based on what I have been reading my whole life about American history comes down to respect and people wanting to have the freedom to achieve what they knew they were capable of, and even some things they didn't know they were capable of. So I think when we mark the 250th anniversary, we look back and look at the lessons we've learned. We look back at the mistakes we've made. We look back at the accomplishments that America and Americans have had over the years, and the concept of constant improvement, of constant growth, of constant reflection to achieve that, I think is really ingrained in who we are as Americans. And we're undaunted by complicated political relationships. We're interested
I like that.
because that means there's just room for growth. That means there's room to improve. That means there's that America's role in the world can continue to be wayfinding and finding a commonality that lets people be free. Freedom of speech being really important to us at the moment, as it always has been. We're just highlighting it as part of our 250th anniversary, and looking back at the founding fathers and the courage that it took for them to speak up as a model to adopt in a new context where technology brings us more information and more things to think about and more things to speak out about.
Wow. I want to take you back a bit to cultural diplomacy, because I think it's something that our creatives really need to zone in on. And it's sometimes dismissed as a soft option. And you spoke about it, that you look music as a way of just getting into spaces that politics and other things don't, rather than hard policy. So how do you make the case internally and to skeptical audiences that culture is a strategic priority and not just something that's nice to have?
Yeah, when we look at what culture really is, it's the people. And that means it's youth, it's civil society, it's future leaders. It's a strategic investment in mutual understanding and, certainly in shared prosperity, because the youth, the civil society, the future leaders are all driving at improvement. And if you ask people across the world, if you ask people here in Zimbabwe or in America, what do you want? What do you want for the future? The answers are going to be the same. I want my kids to be better off than me. I want good education. I want health. I want to be able to have healthy air and water, and I want to be able to make my living in an honest way. Most people are going to say almost the same thing. And so when we talk about culture, we talk about all the things that make it possible for those successes. And I think it's not so much soft diplomacy versus hard policy, because certainly those are the things that inform the policies, right? When you come full circle, you see that the policies are just based on what the goals are. And if those are common goals, maybe the interpretation in terms of how we get there is a little bit different in every context. But when when we bring people together to have those conversations and find those commonalities across cultures, it's a building block for the next steps that drive policy. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. It definitely does make sense. So we're living in a time where there's the narrative of warfare. There's a lot of things that are going on. You switch on the news, there's drama happening in different parts of the world. Every government, every platform, every algorithm is competing for the hearts and minds of people. So how does the embassy in Zimbabwe navigate that landscape? Like, how are you ensuring that American cultural diplomacy does not come across as propaganda?
Well, I think the distinction between cultural diplomacy and propaganda lies in its authenticity, in its reciprocity, its respect for other perspectives and sort of self-agency. Propaganda tells people what to think, and cultural diplomacy creates spaces for people to think for themselves, and to be creative and to be industrious and to connect on their own terms. You know, I don't think we present a sanitized version of America. We showcase that complexity. We've never shied away from saying, you know, these are the lessons we learned. And I hope that when people go to the United States, on purpose, with most exchange programs, on purpose, they will meet with civil society leaders who maybe are critical of a policy. And the goal of that is not so much understanding why they're critical, but understanding that there's space to be critical in a democracy, or to have a voice that says, you know, I don't think this is right. I think we can do better. So I think that when we talk about cultural diplomacy, it's creating a space for people to understand and connect.
Yeah, I'm just going to throw you off a little bit.
Sure.
Because I'm curious to see that in the countries that you've been in, has there been a project or an activity that has happened in the cultural space that you've literally seen influence a policy, like in the work that you've done so far?
Yeah, I've seen that a lot. Particularly with regard to, I was in a country where English wasn't widely spoken, and it was difficult for many people to learn English. And by teaching English, we inspired entrepreneurship, and then integrated English into their national curriculum, because the government integrated the English language that we were teaching, the English language courses that students weren't getting credit for, integrated it into their national curriculum as a policy, because they saw that the emphasis on things like entrepreneurship and adoption of technology were actually having a positive economic impact. So unfortunately, a lot of things go back to economics, but I think that means that there's space for a lot of creativity. And so by teaching English and providing increased access to English language, we thought we were doing one thing. In the end, the local government, the host government, realized we were doing something else and made it work as a policy agenda item for their education curriculum, which I was really proud of, because it impacted a lot of young people and a lot of lives. So there's a number of ways that can happen.
Oh, that's good. That's good. So if you've just tuned in, we are talking to Kiera Emmons from the U.S. Embassy. She's the public diplomacy officer, and we are watching. I mean, we are listening. I keep thinking that we are watching. But if you're on YouTube, you are watching us live. Yes, there is a camera. So Creative Economy Conversations is a space where we just talk about all things creatives, and we try to get industry experts or people who are in different facets of our creative economy to speak to us about how we can position ourselves, particularly in the creative space. This is brought to you by the British Embassy and the Swiss Embassy, who are throwing in their heart and souls into the creative economy. So tell us about the Embassy's decision to contribute to Zimbabwe's Culture Month. For those who don't know, we are celebrating Culture Month, which is exciting to see the different activities that are happening around Zimbabwe. And if I'm not mistaken, I think you guys had an AI-focused event or a discussion that happened. Tell us a bit about that and what the thinking behind framing technology as a cultural conversion.
Yeah, I think you're talking about our recent conversation we had about AI in the music industry.
Yes.
I was really, really happy to see so much enthusiasm around that. We had a Matt B, an Academy, is an Academy, an award-winning, Grammy, that's what it is, a Grammy award-winning musician from the United States.
Yes.
And I think, you know, the essence of the conversation was, oh no, started with, oh no, what are we going to do? AI is sort of eating our lunch as musicians and creatives. And I think by the end of the conversation, a lot of people came away feeling like, okay, this is a tool. It's not a threat. If we embrace it as a tool and we make it work for us rather than working for it, we're in a stronger position. And so embracing that technology across the board as a tool to do new things and think creatively about how technology integrates with what have traditionally not been high-tech segments of that economy. I think it was an interesting conversation. And one of the key takeaways for me that I thought was interesting was that it puts more importance for musicians, at least, and I would probably say for theater and for visual arts as well, puts more importance on the live interactions. Yes. So your concert, your performance is now way more significant to the person who's paid for a ticket and has come to hear you live, or see your work or watch the play or whatever the case may be. That person-to-person interaction is something everybody's going to be craving and carries a lot more weight, which I don't know. I don't think that's a bad thing.
Not a bad thing at all. It's not a bad thing at all, because at some point we all want to connect, and I think there's going to be a point where everybody's AI, that you're going to be like, okay, so where's the real thing? So that's going to be quite a niche as well.
Exactly what they were saying. Yeah. And I would be remiss if I didn't thank our Zimbabwean participants, Keith Kudzai. Thank you, Kudzai. And guitarist Clive Mono Mukundu, Joshua Mtima, and of course Matt B. from the United States.
Nice. Now AI is rapidly changing how music is made, how visual art is created, how stories are told. For a country in Zimbabwe, where cultural expression has been a form of resistance and identity building, what are the opportunities and the risks that AI presents?
Oh, so many.
And maybe you could touch on a few examples as well in the States of what's happening around AI.
Sure, should be happy to. I think in Zimbabwe and in the United States, AI is going to be, if it's not already, transformative and present transformative opportunities and significant challenges indeed. Our own Recording Academy is grappling with how to regulate that. And a lot of what I think happens next, and I'm not an expert in this,
neither am I.
I would put it out there for thought, and I would love to hear what people who are experts have to say. And we're working to bring some of that expertise here to Zimbabwe on the business front anyway. I think it's important that we're a partner in the conversation, though, because a lot of the AI development is happening in the United States and will have, like I said, a transformational global impact. Our Recording Academy looking at how the regulation will impact that, panel discussions, international exchange. All these are tools to connect Zimbabwean artists with global expertise from the United States and resources to help inform critical policy frameworks. I think policy frameworks around the world are going to be very divergent, and it's going to be tricky for creatives to navigate those policy frameworks, because if you record something here in Zim, you don't know where it's going. Hopefully everywhere. But what are the AI policy frameworks? Do you have to label that content as AI enhanced? Do you want to label it? And the difference between what you have to do and what you want to do maybe is going to be bigger. Do you want to label it as not AI enhanced? Maybe that becomes the next step for a lot of creatives. The opportunities, I think, are real, and AI can democratize production tools. I think that it only will serve to put more opportunities in the hands of more people, but we're going to have to make sure that the consumers are aware, I think, in the interest of transparency and being fair and honest and good competition. Good competition is honest and clear. So how that will manifest in every market will be different, and navigating those requirements is going to be increasingly important. I always say to creatives, it's not going to be your business. You have to think of yourself as a business, and your business is not necessarily going to fail or succeed based on the quality of your product. There's a place, the world's big enough, and social media puts it in the hands of so many different people that there's a place for almost everything to be liked and loved by a certain group of people. Almost anything can succeed. But where you will succeed or fail is how you manage your business, which is your product, which is yourself. And AI structures and regulatory frameworks are going to have to factor into that more and more.
So good, and they're here to make it easier for us, I suppose.
I hope so.
Yeah, I hope so too. So did the conversation during Culture Month reveal anything that surprised you? I know you already said you picked up something from the conversation. Did it bring out something that you had not anticipated?
Yeah. Like
what?
At the time, the top 3 trending songs in Zim were AI generated. Yes. Oh my goodness. I see so much talent around me in Zimbabwe. I see hustle. I see just incredible savvy and musical talent. I think is part of the culture here. I feel like I go a lot of places, and there's often people singing and sort of celebrating with song and music in particular. So I was really surprised that AI generated content finds such a place. I mean, I guess that's good if people are able to produce that kind of content and it finds its audience. Great, more room for prosperity, opening new doors for success. I think consumers are results oriented but respond to emotional impact regardless of the origin, and so maybe it just means there's more opportunity. I don't know, it's complicated, isn't it? That really did surprise me though in that conversation.
That's good. So Culture Month is a government-led celebration here in Zimbabwe. So there's different events happening around Zim to celebrate Culture Month. How did the embassy position itself as a partner, as a participant, or as an observer? And how was that received?
Yeah, I think all three. I think we're a collaborator. I think we're a participant. I think we're an observer. I think we want to learn and understand at every opportunity how we can be relevant. And our AI and music panel was aligned with Culture Month themes and brought international perspective to local conversations. The reception, was really strong, and I think it found a good audience here. And that's just one way that we can participate, hosting events, hosting conversations, giving voice to some of the shared concerns between Zimbabwean and American creatives in multiple sectors. And again, I think when we talk about creative industries, we are talking about tech, not only just AI generated music or, whatever the case may be, but I think all parts of the creative economy have an opportunity to use or to decide not to use technology in a way that works for them. And as I said, a lot of the innovation is coming out of the United States. A lot of the tools that marketers use, a lot of the tools that artists use are developed in the United States. And we're happy to, to amplify that value whenever we can.
Yeah, nice. So have you attended any other Culture Month events? Oh, that was...
Have I
you're still to attend? Because there's still a lot to...
I think there's a bunch on my calendar for the next couple of weeks.
Okay.
Yeah.
So maybe I need to catch up with you at the end of the month and hear how that was.
That would be great.
Okay. You've been in Harare for less than a year?
Less than a year, since August.
Yeah. And so what has shifted in your understanding of Zimbabwe?
Oh, man. I wouldn't say it's a shift. I would say...
Or rather, what were you expecting before you came, and then what has changed?
Yeah, I would say I am blown away by the people. The warmth and hospitality and the, like I said, the savvy and the willingness to get stuff done and overcome obstacles and create new opportunities for others. It's been a very warm welcome.
Nice.
And I had been to Zimbabwe 2 or 3 times before I came here as a diplomat. I had come as a tourist. I had lived in some neighboring countries. And I had come as a tourist, and I knew I wanted to be here, and was very excited when I learned I was going to have that opportunity. Nice. But I might have underestimated how warm the welcome and how warm the people, and just what a great sort of social fabric there is here. Yeah. Nice.
So what does success look like for U.S. diplomacy in Zimbabwe? So over the next few years, what does it look like?
I think it looks like people being successful through the networks that we're creating and the foundations that we're laying. I'd like to see these networks thrive independently, entrepreneurs mentoring the next generation, artists collaborating regionally and globally, finding new opportunities for each other. And, I think the framework for discussing the frameworks that we're discussing for things like AI policy turned into policies that matter to the people, to the artists, to the creatives, to the people working on these things. Ultimately, one of our diplomatic goals is to see commercial ties strengthened, trade barriers reduced, and mutual prosperity realized. So can technology and creativity blend to do that? I think that they can. I think it's going to take work from everyone, but Nobody here seems to be afraid of hard work.
Oh no, we're ready for it. We're ready for it. I'm just gonna also ask, because I'm a creative and I also want to know, there's a lot of funding that is dwindling left, right, and center.
Yeah.
So how can I position myself as a creative to be successful? I know you mentioned I need to operate like a business, but can you give me some practical steps that I can position myself?
Well, I think as a creative, you're only as big as you think you are. So think big. Talk to people. Be fearless. I listen to one. I like to listen to podcasts about creative industries myself, and I listened to one. A woman was a photographer, and she built this whole business by calling people. And later, she said, "Well, I didn't know I couldn't. I just picked up the phone." So if you don't know you can't do something, it probably means you can.
Wow.
So I think networks are really important, and if you do not find yourself with a network, go make it. Make it first. Make yourself part of a network. Create the network that you need to succeed. Talk to everyone. Ask for favors. Let people help you. Don't take no for an answer. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. I think the creative industry has a lot in common with almost every other industry. And that is that if you take no for an answer, the answer is no. So don't stop. Keep going. Create the network you need, and get somebody. If you don't have the capacity to manage yourself as a business, find a friend. Find somebody who does. Most people will want to help you.
Yeah.
You don't have to pay for it necessarily in the beginning. Eventually, probably.
Yeah.
Success attracts success, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
That would be my advice: is don't take no for an answer. Keep going.
So good, so good. Kiera, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show. We were chatting with Kiera Emmons from the U.S. Embassy, Harare. You are listening and watching Creative Economy Conversations right here on ZFM Stereo, my station, your station, and we've officially come to the end of our conversation. Thank you again for being with us.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
It is a pleasure. So if you missed the whole conversation, you can also head on over to our YouTube page, Magitare Trust, or the ZFM Stereo YouTube page, and we can continue the conversation there. But for now, we'll end here, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your evening.